Dr. Phil specializes in therapeutic nutrition and movement, clinical aromatherapy, herbology, and self-empowerment. Dr. Phil is straightforward, she's humorous, she blends ancient holistic wisdom with cutting-edge research in a way that is fun and easy to understand. She travels nationally and internationally as a holistic health educator and researches indigenous holistic practices to integrate into her healing techniques and workshops. So yes, we are so lucky to have her, and she's been so flexible with us because she was on the program yesterday, and fortunately she's come back to be with us again today.
It's heavy. It's hard and it's heavy. And what I find is that leaders carry that pain, and because they see people in pain, they think they have to carry it. So they carry that pain on top of the stress that they have with just trying to navigate their own lives, trying to keep the business going, and it gets very heavy. And there's a quote that Dr. Sean Jinwright has that I think is very powerful. And the quote is, the most intense tragedy of oppression, right, is our inability to vision beyond it. And if you're not able to see it, you know, when you're living in survival mode, you tend to think just about the challenges that you have. But if you can't see beyond that, how do we ever get from where we are to where we want to be? So this is about your personal path to joy. So if you go to the next slide, up there, top there, next slide. So we're going to talk a little bit about my personal journey, how I got on the personal path to radiance, and then we'll talk about the personal path to joy. We'll talk about 10 health and healing strategies that help you get on the path and stay on the path, because that in and of itself can be a challenge. And then hopefully we will have time for questions again at the end. So without further ado, let's go to the next slide. And we'll talk a little bit about my own personal journey. I don't know if any of you have heard any of my presentations before, but when I was a child, I accidentally walked in on a crime scene. And there wasn't anyone there to help me through this process. It literally shook me to my core and took my breath away. And that year I developed chronic bronchitis, which turned into what is now called COPD, or chronic obstructive pulmonary disease. There's lots of commercials about COPD because they're always trying to peddle one medicine or another for this disease. It's horrible, and I had it for 27 years. And so in my 26th, 27th year, right around that time, something inside of me was like, you have to change. You have to change. You're going to die if you keep doing what you're doing. What I was doing was going to the doctor and taking medication for the disease, and then every year the disease would come back worse. And so that inner voice was like, if every year you take stronger medication and every year it comes back worse, what are you doing? Exactly. You know, I'm like, okay, this can't work. This can't work. But I didn't know what else to do. Right? So I was kind of stuck. And so I found myself in a bookstore, found a book on this ancient healing strategy called Ayurveda. What I thought was really interesting about it is translated into English, Ayurveda means the science of living, how to live your life. So I opened this book and I'm trying to figure out how to clear up my lungs. And it's talking about all this stuff, like how do you live your life? You know, I'm like, give me the herb to take care of the thing, right? And so I started practicing Ayurveda, and miraculously 3 months later the cough stopped. And that was the end of COPD. I mean, it was like remarkable to have it for 27 years and then all of a sudden nothing. And it was such a shock to me that it was very difficult for me to continue doing the work that I do. And I was in the corporate world, and I said, you know what? I don't even understand what life is about now, right? How can you be sick and then all of a sudden not be sick? And then it was food, water, emotional work. That's it. There was no medication involved in healing my body. Right? So it put me on a totally different path. And so what I learned in that process is that that still small voice that spoke to me in the beginning is really important. And that's my journey of how I became a body whisperer. And I realized that we're all body whisperers. There's a whispering wisdom inside of us that I call the truest part of yourself. And when you connect in with that and are led by that voice, you cannot go wrong. And so that's how I became a person on my personal journey and my path to joy. But if you see, look at that picture there, you'll see that there's a baby picture. And that baby picture is connected to the joy story. When you would ask me about my childhood, I would always say things that are negative. You know, we were broke, my parents were teenagers, the whole bit. But then one day I was asked to get a baby picture and my mother sent me this. And I realized, oh, I was happy as a child. I had completely forgotten that I was happy. And so on your personal path to joy, narrative is important. What are the stories that you tell yourself about who you are? And are you more connected to those negative stories than the positive things that are happening in your life? So go to the next slide. And so Journey to Radiance is a very specific term that we use. And why do we use it? And it is because all of those things that I have crossed out, we already know. We know all of the negative statistics about who we are, that we've been marginalized. We know it, right? The question is not to wallow in the knowing, but it is, now that I know it, what am I going to do? Right? And so that is where I'm really trying to get people to think, right? And Ricky Byers-Beckwith's going to be here later. I love this quote by her husband, Michael Bernard Beckwith. He says, "We are pushed by pain until we're pulled by vision." Right? So how do you want to live your life? You have the same 24 hours in a day, right? And we know that the pain is here, and I don't believe in not having pain, right? You know that pain happens, stress happens. But are you going to be pushed by it or pulled by something else? Right? Pushed by pain means someone else is in control of your life. Pulled by vision means there's something deep inside of you that's pulling you towards something in the midst of the drama and the craziness. Right? And everyone who has ever succeeded, Harriet Tubman would not have succeeded if she was not pulled by a vision. Right? And so let's go to the next slide. So that's what we're talking about. What is your personal path to joy? And so when you think about joy, what is really powerful about joy is that it is something that comes from inside. And true joy cannot be bought, and it cannot be taken away from you. Right? When it is really coming from the inside, nothing from the outside can throw you off your center. And so let's go to the next slide. So the question that I have is, what brings you joy? What brings you joy? So I want just a couple of people to shout out just something that brings you joy.
Satisfaction.
Satisfaction brings you joy, okay? What else?
Friendship.
Friendship brings you joy.
Happy children. Happy children.
Happy children brings you joy. And music? Music brings you joy.
Gratitude.
Acceptance brings you joy.
Gratitude. Clients from PayPal.
Woo, when clients pay you on time on PayPal. The truth brings you joy. Family brings you joy, right? All of these things are things that ignite something that's inside of you, right? It brings out, when you listen to good music, you feel something. It catalyzes something inside you, right? And so this is something that we have to think about when we're in the midst of challenging times, right? So let's go to the next slide and kind of dig into this a little bit more. So before we get into the strategies for bringing joy out, we want to talk a little bit about what the potential stealers of joy are. And these are kind of obvious, but we still have to outline it, right? It's really important. So one, be aware of your narrative. Narrative matters. Like I said, earlier, I had a narrative about my childhood. And I realized not until I saw that picture that that narrative was false. And I was telling that story for years and years and years. Completely forgot about anything happy that ever happened in my childhood, right? So what is your personal narrative? And be aware, are you defining yourself by your problem? Or are you defining yourself by your aspirations and contributions? Who in here has never made a mistake? Right? Come on, right? Who in here has never done something that they wish they had not done? Right? So are we going to be defined by that? Right, we all have. But is that who you are? Are you your mistake? Right? Then why do we define ourselves in that way? Why do we look in the mirror and see our mistake? Right? Why do we not look in the mirror and see our aspirations and contributions? Right? How do we do that? And that's what we're going to be talking about. It may be hard, but we're going to talk about strategies to help you get there. because that's why we call it like the personal path to joy. Your path is to be aware of what steals joy, right? And then put yourself on the path. And if you come off the path, then you can get back on the path. And so your narrative, where you place your focus, fear, and even health can be potential stealers of joy. We're going to talk about all of those things. Let's go to the next slide. So, thieves that steal the joy. I want to talk about stress and negative stress, negative repetitive stress. Sugar, crack cocaine, negative repetitive stress all have something in common, right? They're all very addictive. And we don't realize it because it's a subtle addiction. It's a subtle addiction when you watch the news and then something negative happens and then another negative thing happens and you keep watching. We keep watching the same thing over and over and over again and allow ourselves to be traumatized by it, right? What's really interesting about your brain and body, though, from a physiological perspective and from a neurological perspective, your body and brain does not know the difference between what has happened for real and what you're remembering or imagining, right? So if I'm driving down the street and a deer jumps in front of the car, that's a real threat. But if tomorrow I tell you that I was driving down the street and a deer jumped in front of my car, my body and brain experiences the same stress that I felt when it really happened. So every time you regurgitate and remember a negative event, your body experiences the same stress, right? And so that's a real challenge. That's something that we have to be aware of and work through. So let's go to the next slide and talk a little bit more about this. So I love this quote from Dr. Joe Dispenza. He says, your body needs energy and stress steals this energy from your immune, digestive, and endocrine and other systems, and it directs it to the muscles that you would use for fight or flight, right? Or from running from danger. And this works against you and sets you up for disease. So imagine adrenaline, which is highly poisonous, right? You're living on it, and it's being thrown into the muscles, and the energy is being pulled from your vital systems. What does that do to a person over time, right? Sets you up for disease, makes you very vulnerable for disease, right? And so people say to me, well, what am I supposed to do? Pretend that the stress is not happening? No. But yesterday, if you were here, I talked about allowing the stress to move through you without getting stuck in you, right? And so this is what we're talking about. So let's go to the next slide. And we'll talk a little bit about the ways that we reignite Black love and Black joy. Self-mastery is one of them. And there were a lot of conversations yesterday about self-mastery. I don't know if any of you were here yesterday and practiced looking into someone's eyes. And yes, right? Those are self-mastery practices, right? If you cannot master yourself, and it is the hardest job you'll ever have, you will never be able to control conditions. And what's really interesting is self-mastery is scary, because you have to look at yourself and you have to look at your weaknesses, right? And you have to address them without judging yourself, right? So it's like, and the way I like to explain it to adults is when you see a young child trying to walk and they're getting up and falling down and getting up and falling down, do you say, you stupid idiot, get up, what's wrong with you? We never do that, right? What do you say to the child? Come on, you can do it, yes, come on. And you see them jumping up and falling down. Why can't we do that with ourselves? Because we're just trying to figure it out. We're just older, right? But we're still trying to figure stuff out too. When we do this thing and we make a mistake, why can't we say, oh, you know what, try it again next time, right? So what would that look like? So self-mastery looks like emotional intelligence, emotional balance, managing stress and perspective. And what I mean by stress management and perspective is you're going to have stress, but how do you use it, right? And the Native American have a way of thinking about what they call transmutation. And so they say, for example, if a snake bites you and injects you with its venom, you're going to die for sure, right? Unless through your spiritual practice, you become an alchemist. And in that alchemy, turn that what was meant to be poison into nectar for the body. And this is what spiritual practice does for us. Although people may bring poison our way, there is a practice that we can engage in that converts that poison into nectar to be used by the body. And that's the health and healing strategies that I want to talk to you about today. And then the final thing I want to talk about in terms of self-mastery is allowing your eyes to be windows and not projectors. This is huge. This is very huge. So if you look out the window, you see what's there, right? You just see what's there. But if I say something to you, and the way I say it reminds you of something that someone else said to you and ticks you off, and you respond to that, your eyes are now projectors, right? The computer is projecting onto the screen something that I put on in the past, right? But when I look out the window, I'm in the present moment and I just see what's there. So when you and I are having a conversation, can you slow down enough, take a breath, and understand that maybe this upset, maybe what the person said was a little off and you need to address that, but maybe all that energy that you have may be connected to something else, and can you make that separation? It's hard to do, but that's how we have to start practicing self-mastery. Let's look at the next slide. We'll talk a little bit also about sharing joy. Don't you feel good when you share joy with someone else? Or maybe you weren't feeling good and someone shared joy with you and that made you feel better? We can make sharing joy a habit, and there are two ways that I think are important. One, for people that are into being tech savvy, the mass media is flooded with negative images, right? But we could use social media for good, right? So all this weekend, we've been posting beautiful pictures of you on social media. Look at all these beautiful black people doing it in Rafiki, right? So that's a way of sharing joy and getting it out to the masses. And I've had people hit me up from all across the country like, man, we should do this here in our town, right? So that's one way you can share joy and make it a habit. Another way is just giving random acts of kindness. A walk, a smile, a hug, you know, just reach out to folks, especially if you see that someone might be in a negative mood or a negative mode, right? Sometimes I smile at people and they look at me and I smile again and they're like, well, I can't stay too grumpy. Right? I just hold it. I don't allow the fact that they're not smiling to keep me from smiling. I'm going to stay rooted and connected to the truest part of myself, and I'm going to send it out whether it comes back to me or not, right? And when you begin to make that a habit, you know, someone asked me years ago, why are you always so happy? And I without thinking, was like, why are you always so grumpy? You know? And I was like, oh, I probably shouldn't have said it like that. And then I took a breath and I said, you know, the reason why I'm happy is because I have a PhD in pain. I went through pain and suffering for 27 years with a debilitating disease. And after I went through that process, I decided that I want to get a PhD in joy, happiness, wealth. And so I want to study that as much as I possibly can. And the reason why I got healthy is because I laid my burdens down. I'm not responsible for my family's happiness, for their health and wellness. I give them information if I can, but there's only so much you can do for others, right? And you can't carry other people with you, no matter how much you love them. You can't carry them. The best thing you can give to anyone is a healthy you, body, mind, emotions, and spirit. I love my family so much, I really do. But I have to say, there's a good reason why I live 3,000 miles away from most of them, right? I'm just keeping it real. I love them, I really do. But I was the superwoman, the strong one in the family, the one that everyone came to. It was too much for me. And now they have to be more resilient because I'm not there all the time. So because I left, they are now stronger, right? And then when I see them, we have a great time, and I make sure I book a flight just a couple days later so I get out of there before anybody gets on my nerves. I'm just, you gotta know yourself and keep it real. I'm keeping it real, right? I'm keeping it real. So I love them, but this is how it goes. So let's go to the next slide. So we're gonna talk about 10 strategies to maintain a joyous path. And these strategies we've posted all around the room. You can see there's a few of them here and they're outside as well. We want you to take a look at them and think about them. So we're going to talk about these 10 strategies, and then we're going to hopefully have some time for questions. So the first strategy is wellness and narrative change, right? Taking care of your body, but then questioning your narrative. Is your narrative true? Is it true? Like I had the question when I saw that picture. Was my childhood that unhappy? Was it, right? Question it and understand what really is true. And then make sure that your personal narrative is connected to your aspirations and your contributions, right? The vision for where you want to be. How do you get from where you are to where you want to be? You have to start looking and seeing it, right? So let's go to the next slide. Number two. Number two is one of my favorites. It's emotional and mental wellness and balance. And I try to make up little mantras for people to think about. You've heard sitting is the new smoking, right? You've heard allow the stress to move through you without getting stuck in you. This one is probably one of my favorites, and that is give from your excess and not from your essence, right? So I'm going to say that again. Give from your excess and not from your essence, right? Do you know what your essence is? Do you know the difference between the two? Are you right? Right? So we got to talk some more about that. You need to have those boundaries, right? What that means is that you fill yourself up until you are in overflow. Until you are in overflow, you cannot give to anyone else. And that is very hard for us. But we have got to learn how to get there. And I've had many, many arguments with people about this. And so one person I finally said, okay, here's the deal. If you have $5, tell me how you can give me 10 and you win the argument. Right? And the person was like, oh, I'm like, that's right, because that's what you're doing. You cannot. You have to fill yourself up first, right? So that's something I really want you to meditate on, for the next several months. What is your essence, right? And how do you fill yourself up? And you'll know it because somebody's going to ask you a question. And inside, the body whisper is going to be like, no! And your mouth's going to be like, sure, I'll do it. Right? And then you'll be like, dang, got it. Yeah? That's exactly what I'm talking about. And that causes mental and emotional duress in your body. Every time you squish your spirit like that. Right? So sometimes you have to just say no. And not no with an explanation, just no. No. Right? So let's go to number 3. Therapeutic nutrition. Therapeutic nutrition. Food is medicine, and medicine is food. When you eat pork rinds, your body can't be like, well, I'm going to just pretend you didn't do that. No, your body has to take that food in, and it's got to deal with it and get it out, right? And food is either nutrition or waste. There's no gray, and there's nothing in the middle, right? So if there's no nutrition in it, you are eating waste, and you're not giving your body the energy or the resources to move it out, right? And so therapeutic nutrition is extremely important. Let's go to number 4. All of these are on the poster as well. Let's go to number 4, next slide. Okay, the healing power of nature. One of the reasons why I live in California is because I am a nature person. You will always see me out on the hiking trails. And what I find interesting is I'm always trying to get people of color to come with me, and I can get everybody but black folks. And what happens is black folks are like, what's this like Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom? There's going to be like snakes and I don't know what we're thinking. But when I look at who we are as a people, we came from nature, right? And there's a very specific reason why black people were put in the concrete jungle, right? It's a way of breaking us away from the truest part of ourselves. And now it's gotten to the point where we're actually afraid to go into nature. So I want you to push past that fear. When I first moved to New Mexico, there was a hill that led to a hiking trail. And I experienced this absolutely first on. I was going up the hill, and I was afraid of what was on the other side of the hill. So I turn around and go back. I'm like, this is ridiculous. I'm a grown woman, and I can't go. What is going on? I had no idea how colonized my mind was, that it was deep in my bones. And so, but every day the body whispers like, keep going, go a little further. Every day I went a little further, a little further. When I got to the top of the hill, I was so embarrassed. It was like a parking lot. I'm like, are you kidding me? Oh my God. So I walked around to the parking lot, and that was the entrance to a trailhead. And I saw all these other people out there walking, and I started walking that trail. And what that trail became for me was a process that I call take it to the mountain. When I was upset, I would take it to the mountain. When something was heavy on my mind, I would take it to the mountain. If someone in my family had passed on, I would take my tears to the mountain. And always I would start in stress, and by the time I came back down around that trail, it was about 45 minutes, I was completely healed of whatever that issue was. And so firsthand, I know the healing power of nature. Anytime I have a challenge, I take it outside, take it to the trail, take it to the river, the ocean, or the mountain. And I highly recommend that you start finding ways to do that, especially in a place like California, where there's gorgeous trails everywhere. And I want to see more melanin on the trail. # melanin on the trail. Okay? Number 5. Let's go to the next slide. Therapeutic movement. Finally, my favorite. Sitting is the new?
Smoking.
Okay. So what am I going to ask you to do? I'm going to ask you to stand up. So let's stand up and we'll practice this. Every 45 minutes, you should stand up and stretch for about 30 seconds, right? So we're going to do a quick stretch. You're going to be sitting a lot today. I want to see stretching. Whenever you see me, I want you to take a stretch, right? That's right. So we did this stretch yesterday. I want to do it again. It's my favorite because it opens up the space between the vertebrae and the spine. So feet shoulder width apart, tailbone tucked under, pull the shoulders up, back and down, right? And as we breathe in, we're going to move nice and slow. We're going to lift the arms up overhead. And as we exhale, we're going to relax the shoulders down. Now we're going to breathe in, lift up on tiptoes, try to balance. Good. Exhale down. Keep your heels down this time. Breathe in, reach up as high as you can, but don't force it. And as you exhale, ease your way to the left. I'm going to go the same direction as you. Good. Opening the space between the vertebrae and the spine. Breathe in, reach up. Exhale, ease your way to the right. Good. Breathe in, reach up. Exhale, bring the arms down. And now we're going to do something that brings out the energy inside. It's called a hyperthrow. I'll do it first and then I want you to do it, but I want you to give me so much energy that I bounce a little, okay, on stage. So we're going to do a similar thing. We're going to breathe in and bring the hands up to the height of the chest. I'll show it first. And as we exhale, we're going to push that energy into this area, the solar plexus, which is the place of joy. Then we're going to breathe in and bring the energy up. We're going to hold that energy. And then, all at the same time, it feels really good, and then we're going to lower it down, right? What I love about this exercise is that when you have something in you that's stuck, it really helps to loosen it. So I'd like for people to do it a couple of times. We'll try it twice, all right? The first time, I want to test to see how much energy you're willing to give. Second time, I want you to really give it all you got, all right? Ready? All right. Breathe in, bring the energy up to the height of the chest. As you exhale, push that energy into the solar plexus, right under the chest. Good. Now, breathe in, pull the energy up. Hold it. Good. Take a breath in. Exhale down. Feels better, right? All right? So now I want you to think about stressors, stuff that maybe you have on you, right? As you breathe in, you're taking in the energy of the spirit, the energy that created you, and you're pushing that inside. But now all that stuff that was on your chest, you need to move it out, right? So that's kind of what we're doing. We're trying to move that energy out. So let's try it again, and I want you to really get in there and push it out. But make sure that you keep your elbows and your knees slightly bent, right? In martial arts, if you extend your arm and lock your elbow, you've given yourself up to your opponent. But if you keep slightly bent, you can always retract, right? So very important for you to do that. So let's try it again. Nice and easy. Take a breath in, bring the energy up to the height of the chest. As we exhale, push that energy into the solar plexus, energizing our place of power and joy. Breathe in, pull the energy up. Hold it. Good. Take a breath in. Exhale down. Good. Just take a moment, feel the body, feel that energy moving in the body. You just activate it a little bit, right? Somebody really gets on your nerves, just do it until you feel better, right? So you can go ahead and take a seat. Let's go to number 6. So that's what I mean when I say allow the stress to move through you without getting stuck in you, right? When you feel stuck, you need to do something to push it out of your body. So number 6 is cultivation of self-awareness. And I am a firm believer that we need to be rooted and grounded in the truest part of ourselves. Most people of color are extremely emotionally driven, right? This is known. This is known particularly by our colonizers, right? So they do something to get us upset. And while we're over here being upset, they're passing legislation over here, right? And so when things are said to ignite you, to get you upset, I want you to take a breath, right? And I want you to calm yourself. And I want you to pay attention to what's really happening, right? Scope the entire scene of what's happening, right? You know, when those famous tweets start happening, I don't pay attention to those at all. You know what I'm talking about. I don't give any energy to those tweets. None. I'm sorry. I have control over my energy, and I'm not giving any energy there. Because we have to put what you focus on has power over your life. So if you focus on the negativity, you get more negativity. People are like, why does da-da-da always happen to me? I'm like, because you keep saying that it keeps happening to you. That's why. Stop saying that. You know, say instead, wow, why is it that, what is the nature of joy and abundance, right? Just ask the question. Like, how do I learn more about that, right? Why are people so nice to me all the time? Say something else, right? Don't put any energy in it. So, breathe deeply and ask yourself, what am I about to say? And why am I about to say it? Whenever someone says something, take a breath, right? Before you get ready to go to a meeting. What am I about to do and why am I about to do it? Always put the breath first. Why? Because your brain is only 2% of your body's mass, but it requires 20% of your body's oxygen and glucose, right? So you need to breathe, activate the brain, so that the brain can be like, well, this is the best choice for you. But if someone says something to you and you just respond, right? That's not a response. That's a knee-jerk reaction. If you can stop knee-jerk reacting to anything, it will life-changing, absolutely life-changing, right? Someone says something to you, you knee-jerk react, they are in complete control of your psyche in that moment, right? Someone says something to you, you take a breath, and then you choose a response. Even if it's not the response you would have wanted, it's better than if you knee-jerk reacted, right? You have to practice that every time. When people say things to me and I take a breath, they start to freak out a little bit because they don't know what I'm going to do. It's really, you should try it with folks. They're just like, what's going on? Because they're trying to get a reaction out of you, but you're like, you know, they're like, whoa, sometimes people back up. And I'm like, that's right, because I'm dangerous. Let's go to 7. I'm serious, you got to keep it real. Let's go to the next slide. So cultivation of self-awareness is really important to tap into the truest part of yourself and be rooted and grounded in it. In Qigong, we have a practice called rooting, right? And when you get into this rooted posture, a lying back or running full speed can't knock you down, right? So you have to be like that with your emotional and mental health. You have to be so rooted and grounded in it that nothing that happens from the outside world can knock you off your center. And that takes practice, right? That's why I keep using the word cultivation, right? Cultivation of self-awareness. Like you cultivate a garden. You don't just plant the seeds and walk away. You've got to be going out there pulling weeds and doing all kinds of stuff all the time, right? So accountability and inspired action. That's number 7. Don't say that you're going to do something and then don't tell nobody. You got to tell people. Because when you tell people, it puts them on the hook. That's why we don't like to say nothing, right? It's like, that's right, I'm going to lose 20 pounds. Because now if you said it to that person, they're going to be looking at you like, did you say you was going to lose or gain 20 pounds? You know? Get it out there. Find an accountability partner, someone that holds you accountable. I know myself. I know that I like snacks. So I keep healthy snacks around the house. So if I feel like I want a snack, then I'm covered. Right? I know that certain things get on my nerves, you know, so I put buffers in place, right? I know that when I talk a lot, I'm going to, you know, my throat's going to get dry, so I brought my strategy, right? So for everything that happens, you have a counter strategy, right? Never be without a counter strategy and know yourself. You're like, I know this is the way I behave, and I know this person gets on my nerves. If that person gets on your nerves, maybe that person is a Facebook friend, and you're trying to make them your best friend. Right? There was an incident where someone contacted me on Facebook. I'm like, oh girl, I haven't seen you in a long time. Let's go to the movies. When she shows up at the movie theater, as soon as I see her face, I'm like, oh my God, that's why you're a Facebook friend. I was like, oh, this is the most negative person ever. You should have seen me trying to get out of that movie. Right? I was like, oh no, this is a Facebook friend. This is not a person that I go to the movies with. Right? So sometimes you got to get clear about that, and it's okay. You know, as a Facebook friend, she's great, right? But don't try to make someone that is, and sometimes this is your family. Don't try to put them in your inner circle when they need to be in your outer circle. right? These are things that cause a lot of stress. So find an accountability partner and put yourself on the hook for where you want to grow. So let's go to the next slide. We'll talk about that. Wellness mentorship. So we would love to be your partners in wellness mentorship. I've written lots of blogs. We have about 13 podcasts that Wolf Hawk Jaguar and I do together. We've had amazing shows that we'd love for you to listen to. You can go to blackmaleachievement.org and let us be your mentor in health and wellness. And if you're like, I'm really struggling with something, send me an email. And then I'm like, okay, people are talking about this a lot, then I'll write a blog about it to help you with your counter strategies, right? So have mentorship, tap in and spend some time with people that are actively engaging in self-care and that care about your mental and emotional well-being. So let's go to number 9. Number 9, reinforce the practical, right? Health and healing strategies throughout the day. This is important. I remember I did a presentation and someone came up to me and they were like, hey, Dr. Phil, love what you said, great stuff, promise you I'm gonna start doing it as soon as the busy season is over. And I was like, what if you die in the middle of the busy season, right? I don't know how many of you all know Dr. Prince White, but he lives in Oakland and worked to help, get people out of prison. He was an incredible leader, absolute incredible leader. And he died last year, and at his funeral, I learned that he was 37. And what was so painful for me in hearing this was I remember looking deep into his eyes and saying, Prince, you got 2 children. And I see you carrying this weight, and you don't have to carry it, And it was funny, I was talking about, he really needs you to take better care of yourself, because I could feel it. And I remember him looking back at me and understanding me intellectually, but not being willing to put it into practice, And so we lose leaders who do great, great, great work, right? Because they think they have to carry something that they don't, right? If you're drowning, if a person is drowning, right, and you're standing too close to them, they will pull you in to save themselves. Not because they don't love you, right? So you have to be careful about how you're helping that person. If they're drowning, you have to find a safe way to help pull them out without pulling you in. You feel me when I'm saying that? That's extremely important, because otherwise, what good are we to anybody? Right? If you both drown, then what? In the airplane, they're like, put the mask on yourself first. Why? Because if you don't, you risk what? Both of you dying. So as leaders in the field, right, trying to elevate who we are and trying to get us from where we are to where we want to be, how do we do that if we're broke down? And then we say to young people, oh, don't pay attention to those rap stars, pay attention to me. I'm out of shape, overweight, with a car that looks horrible, and barely keeping my organization together. Right? And we're like, I don't know why these young people looking at these rappers. Right? I'm like, look at you. What example are you giving? If you showed up like a Navy SEAL and had your stuff tight, they'd be like, So think about that. It's really important. So let us partner with you, and then remember, it's all day, every day. You can breathe and pause before you speak or act. That's something you can do all day. You can stand up and stretch every 45 minutes. Right? That you can do all day, every day. Don't tell me you don't have time. You got time. We did it here. You have time. Right? So let's go to number 10. Ongoing support through strategic communication. So follow us, listen to the podcast, and interact with us. If you see something going on with a campaign for Black Male Achievement and you're like, hey, I want to know about XYZ, tune in. You can go to our booth, get the 10 health and healing strategies, and you can also sign up to be a member where we do membership network calls so you can hear what's happening all across the country. Someone was in the booth yesterday and they were like, I want to do something in San Francisco that helps parents and students get ready for school. And I was like, oh, in Sacramento they do this Get Ready Summit, and they've been doing it every year. Why build it from scratch? I'll just connect you with him, and he can tell you how he does it. And you see, we can learn how to work together, right? So that's something that we need to start doing. I know that there are reasons why we don't always trust each other. We've hurt each other in the past, but we have to learn how to look each other in the eye and say, when you said or did X, Y, Z, that was not cool. but I really want to work with you, and moving forward, these are our new professional norms. We can do that, right? And the campaign, because we're a national organization, we do a lot of that mediation work to help people work together. So that's something that we have to start doing, because we've got like 30% of the Black population that's left Oakland, right? So between Oakland and San Francisco and Sacramento, I mean, we're all kind of scattered. We don't have enough people to be saying, oh, I don't want to talk to you because something you said to me 10 years ago, right? We got to stop that. We got to stop. You just don't look right. Something ain't right. We got to get past that, right? We got to, right? There's just not enough of us. All right, let's go to the next slide. All right. So I want to walk you through a couple of exercises and then have a little Q&A. I'm not sure exactly how much time I have left, but I want to walk you through this exercise that we did yesterday as well, because I keep saying tap into the truest part of yourself, tap into the truest part of yourself. And when I say that, I want you to know exactly what I mean, right? So we're going to do this exercise. You can do it sitting. Either sit and push your bum all the way to the back or come up on the front 1/3 of the chair. Either way, rock your hips from side to side so that you can feel your sit bone. So your sit bone is here and your tailbone is here. So don't sit here, right? You want to feel that bone under the hip, right? And then you're going to very gently pull your shoulders up, back, down, and relax it there. And now I want you to pretend that you're in water. And you know it's very easy to move fast, but you're going to learn it's not as easy to move slow. So I want you to pretend that you're in water and move so slow that it's like you're moving through water without making ripples. Right? What is that like? So let's give it a try. Now, rotate your hands forward, and bending at the elbows, take a breath in and lift the hands up to the height of the chest. Try not to make a ripple in the water. Exhale, turn the palms in so that they face each other. Open the space between the fingers and the space under the armpit. From here, take a breath in, and as you breathe in, expand the hands outward. As you exhale, the hands come inward. We're going to do this 2 more times. Good. Breathing in, expanding outward. Exhale, the hands move inward. Good. Try not to make a ripple in the water. Breathe in, expanding outward. You look beautiful. Exhale, the hands come inward. Now the hands come to a pause, but now you just breathe slowly and deeply. And I want you to pulse your hands in and out, but I want you to try to slow yourself down. And every time you pulse inward, I want you to try to slow down even more. I'm going to try to help you with this. Take yourself back to a memory of when you were a child, or maybe your last bubble bath. Do you remember what it was like when you could touch the edge of a soap bubble right before it popped? In Qigong, we call this empty force. You're going to practice empty force, pushing inward, but slowing yourself down so much that it's like you're barely moving, but you're pressing inward. Now, as you do that, breathing slowly and deeply in and out, I want you to start to pay attention to what you feel. And as you're paying attention to what you feel, I want you to direct your attention to the inside of your hands. Breathing slowly and deeply in and out. Notice what you feel. Sometimes people feel pulsing or tingling or vibration, or maybe a magnetic pull, like 2 magnets pulling each other apart. Doesn't matter what it is. Just pay attention. Notice what you feel. And then take a breath in, and as you do so, turn the palms down so that they face the floor. And as you exhale, slowly lower the hands down. And try not to rush through the process. Try to stay slow all the way to the end. And when you're at the end and your hands are all the way down, check to see that your hands are relaxed. You see my hands relaxed like this? A lot of people end like this. Keep your hands totally relaxed. When you've completely relaxed, go ahead and sit back in your chair. So question, did anybody feel anything? Let me see hands. You guys feel anything? Okay, good, a lot of people. So shout out a couple of things that you felt.
Tingling.
Tingling, magnet, Shivered.
Pulsation.
Pulsation.
Relax.
Relaxed. Your arms felt heavy. That's really good, okay. Anything else? Anybody feel cold or hot? Okay. You felt hot, okay. So we all did the exact same exercise at the exact same time. But we got pulsing, tingling, vibration, heat, cold, heaviness. What does that mean? What are you tapping into? And did it have anything to do with me? No. Whatever you felt was you. That's your body talking to you. That's the energy in Qigong called Qi. Energy, breath, life force. Gong is movement, cultivation, work. Gong was me telling you to slow down by pretending that you're in water, right? Right? It's a technique. So the purpose of the exercise was to get you to recognize that your body is talking to you all the time, right? Are you listening? You know when you're not listening, because when you're not listening, it's like, ugh. It's that feeling, right? Right? So know that that power is with you all the time, and if you stay focused on that, we're good. How are we time-wise?
We need to wrap up.
Wrap up. Okay, let's go to the next slide. Just about there. And the next, we already did a little bit of movement. Okay, so we'll go to the next slide. And I will just say this. If I am standing on the edge of a cliff and Charles Manson is standing next to me and we both jump off, what happens? We both die. So because I am a wonderful person who loves you and is dedicated to health and healing, does that mean I will be spared? No. So natural law cannot be changed, right? So because you are a good person, you still have to eat right, take care of yourself. You've got to do all those things, right? You have to do those things. Natural law cannot be changed. Right? Let's go to the next. Okay. I think this is kind of a good place to kind of wrap up. Osho has a wonderful quote on how maturity sustains your path to joy. And he says, to grow old is not to grow up. To become old is not to become mature. Maturity has nothing to do with old age, nothing to do with age at all. Maturity has something to do with becoming more and more conscious, becoming more and more silent and aware, becoming more and more watchful of what you are doing and why, where you are going and why. So let's go to the last slide so you can see, that's just a summation of all that we talked about. True joy is rooted in the deepest part of yourself. Be aware of the potential joy stealers, right? Remember that you can stay connected with us, and most importantly, stay connected to the truest part of yourself. So thank you so much. Be well, and be great.